So, is it possible to earn fill in the blank kind of money without investing something, at least, like something? You know, I would think you'd have to put some kind of money out. And I've done it plenty of times before, whether it was joining a new network marketing business or buying a course or buying some books. Like, that perspective of like when you sign up for those meal prep uh, services where like they send you all of your ingredients so you can cook your dinner, but you still have to provide like salt, pepper, and oil. Like you have to have these basics. They're assuming that you have like some basic things at home that you're able to put towards your dinner, but they're going to help supply you with like the veggies and the meat and the grains and whatnot. That is kind of like what this feels like to me. You've got to have just a few foundational things, but I'll be honest with you, I know for a fact you've already got them. You can do this with very, very, very little money out of pocket. I'll share with you how I have done my wholesaling and how I have closed transactions with such little money out of my personal pocket, like my literal family checking account, which is what we use to pay our mortgage and our car payment. I'll share with you how it is that I've done that and how it is that I continue to plan to do that because I want to continue wholesaling. But it has to be in such a way that it is scalable, that it's sustainable, and that it doesn't drive me nuts. It has to provide the dopamines because if it's not new and shiny and exciting, I'm way less likely to stick with it. Whenever you really don't want to, which happens to all of us all of the time, and I think nobody ever talks about it. But I think it can be done. I've done it before. I plan to continue doing it, and I'm going to share with you here. Hey again, my name is Erica. Welcome to my channel where I'm literally talking about how I am probably one of the most multi-passionate, not diagnosed ADHD, but I strongly suspect something's going on. Multi-passionate entrepreneur, that's my mindset, that's my mind frame. My history in my life, anyways, as an adult and working, has literally led to me owning my own business because I don't feel like I fit in a 9 to 5. I don't want to fit in a 9 to 5. But it turns out being a stay at home mom full time with very young kids, like so my oldest is 4.5, my youngest is 2. It's not fun. It's actually pretty freaking terrible. And this has been a big outlet for me to challenge myself to do different things, to focus on different things besides just like literal kid stuff and buying groceries and maybe having some clean clothes and trying to take a shower every day. So, how did I do it? In my very first video, if you haven't seen that one, I was trying to give like the context of how I actually started wholesaling, like what led me to it, and how did my first couple of transactions pan out. So those series of transactions totaled to about $10,000 in earnings that I earned probably within the span of about 2 months. I'd say a month and a half to 2 months because the time that I got it under the properties under contract all the way through till closing, it takes some time. Like real estate closings and real estate transactions, they take some time. So I'd say anywhere between the 4 to 8 week mark was when I earned that amount of money back in September, October, very early November of 2023. So now it's been about a year later. We are now midway through September 2024, and I'm still at this. I was able to do it back then only because I did it the way that I did it. Because I was able to complete those transactions successfully, I'm like, I really want to continue doing that now. And what I want to do is continue to make myself more efficient, more effective, work more with other people so that I'm not doing the things that someone else could be handling that is really talented. Like that's just their freaking bread and butter. Like if it's something that I am really good at, I want to focus on the things that I'm really good at so that I can be more efficient, more effective, more profitable, whatever you want to call it. So as a result of starting my very first transactions, I didn't have the money. I didn't have any money. Um, I'm a very big proponent because of other business courses that I've taken that business expenses should be and need to be separated from your like regular expenses that you are using just to fund your life. Um, so I wanted to be able to buy my things that I needed from my own earnings, but you don't have those earnings yet. When you're starting to look for the properties, you're not going to get your first paycheck until the property goes to closing. So I started kind of a little bit backwards. I was okay with investing because I had a card that was specifically for my business. So that's how I kind of like separated it from just like my normal transactions that I'm, going like if I go to McDonald's with the kids or, going to grocery shop or paying the mortgage or whatever. That's how I separated it. I ended up using a card that was solely for my business purposes. So the one of the big problems with me is I'm very easily sold on something. It doesn't take a lot for me to see the potential. It doesn't take a lot for me to see the um, profitability of a particular investment. So I was like, I've done a lot of different things, and my husband is pretty much done with me. He's fed up with me trying new stuff and spending our money in order to do it. So I was like, I've got to make this happen without that. Like I have to be able to do this without putting out a bunch of cash. So essentially, the way that I ended up making those transactions work with no money out of pocket is making sure that my earnest money deposit that I was placing with my sellers was a reasonable dollar amount, but I also was very conscious of my time frames. So when you're looking at the span of a transaction, a couple of the key dates will be what is your inspection period for the time frame that you have to do research, make sure this is property doesn't have anything crazy going on with it, as well as when is your earnest money deposit due. Now, your earnest money deposit is, it kind of depends on like your knowledge of what a transaction might look like, but essentially an earnest money deposit is a good faith statement from you as the buyer towards the seller saying, hey, I'm going to be good on this transaction. Like, I'm going to actively work to get to closing. I'm putting all of my best into getting to closing so that way I can actually buy your property. You can get paid and ownership can transfer. In a very basic like way of explaining it, it's essentially that. Like, I'm putting a deposit down on this particular contract. That money is going to come off of, at the end of the day, your purchase price of the property. So if you're going under contract with a seller and you're going to buy his property for $10,000, if you put down that $500 is going to be your earnest money deposit, that money does get deducted from your bottom line. So once you get to the closing table, your balance owed is going to be $9,500 because you've already done the 500 from when you got it under contract with him. So for me, I was very conscious of the fact that, okay, I don't have like, those were, I think it was like 4 or 5 properties that I had placed under contract in very quick succession. I don't have um, all of those types of funds. Now there's solutions to that. Like, imagine that each of them was $500. So you're still talking, $1,500 just to start a transaction. That wasn't going to be possible until later on down the road. There's solutions to that. You can find a lender who will lend you for a very short time frame. If you're disciplined enough, you could use something like a credit card. Whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you're comfortable with doing. For me personally, I was like, okay, if I can discuss this as part of my terms with my seller and they agree to it, then I think I know a way that I can make it work, that I'm not tying up my cash on multiple transactions all at the same time. So I paid attention, and this is still how I do this. I paid attention to my due dates as far as my inspection period. How many days do I have for my inspection period, as stated on the contract, and how many days do I have for my earnest money deposit before it's actually due? I like to make my earnest money deposit due either the same time frame as the inspection period ending or like just before. So when I go into a transaction, I can safely assume it'll take 30 days to get to closing. So let's say from September the 1st, you go under contract, you can anticipate at the end of September, like the 29th or the 30th, you'll go to closing. Just to make an example. My inspection period varies. It's absolutely negotiable. That's a part of what you're talking about with your seller when you actually start talking to them in the first place. So let's say that you decide with the seller, hey, give me, I'm going to need 10 or 15 calendar days in order to do my inspection period. Let's assume 15. We'll just make it nice and round. We'll say 15 days. So from September the 1st, which is the day that everybody signed the contract, through September 15th, you have that entire 2 weeks to do your inspection period. I like to put on my contract that my earnest money deposit is not due to be paid until, at the latest, September 15th. So what that does for me is I don't have to rush out like the next day or the day of in order to pay my earnest money deposit. I have a buffer. With that buffer, and this is crucial, with that buffer, I am hustling to market for a buyer who would be interested in purchasing my contractual rights to the property. Now, it's a very big distinction that you need to understand, you need to make, and you need to make sure that you are very clear of both in how you communicate to the seller, how you communicate to potential buyers, and how you portray yourself. As a wholesaler, I am not selling a property that I own. I don't own that property. The only way that I would own that property is if I literally went to closing and I paid my own money or I got financed in order to buy that place. I'm not doing that. I am taking that property, putting it under contract. I'm turning around and I'm marketing that particular piece of paper to another end buyer who does have the money, who would be interested in going to closing, and I'm going to do it for a profit. So I'm literally selling them my paper. When I go to my buyer, I tell them, hey, Mr. Buyer, I have this property under contract. I'm looking to reassign it. Let's say he buys it from me. I went under contract for $10,000. I put $500 down as my earnest money deposit. I turn around and I find a buyer. I sell my contractual rights to the property to the buyer for $15,000. Erica, I earn the $5,000 difference. That comes back as profit to me. A key part of that transfer from myself holding the contract to my end buyer holding the contract, the person who's going to put up the $15,000, a key portion of that is going to be the fact that they also have to provide earnest money deposit, because they need to be able to prove and to show, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to get to closing. My end buyer will have a non-refundable earnest money deposit. My contract with my seller is going to say that I have X amount of days where I can still back out of the contract and get my earnest money deposit returned to me. As far as when my contract is put into place between me and my reassignment, then my end buyer, their contract is going to state that their earnest money deposit is now non-refundable. They still get all of the benefits of my original contract with my seller. They still get to have inspection period. They still get to have any of the additional terms and conditions. They have to stick to what my seller and I agreed upon as far as closing costs, who's covering what, who's paying for whatever, but their earnest money deposit, as of the state, the moment that they sign for that assignment of contract, they're stating that their earnest money deposit is non-refundable. Why is that? It's not necessarily to be a jerk. It is the nature of the business. However, you also want to ensure and remember that when you're going under contract with a seller, that's a legal binding contract. You're not just signing a fun little piece of paper. It's not just a little receipt you get at Walmart. It's a legally binding contract. So you're abiding by the terms within that agreement that you're going to purchase that property. It just so happens to be that the contract allows you to reassign it if you decide to do so. So you decided to reassign it. Your end buyer comes in. At the point that the end buyer steps in and they say, yeah, I'll buy it for $15,000, they are also entering into a legally binding contract. And the issue is, what if this person ghosts you? What if you're supposed to go to closing on September 30th and the guy never shows? What happens then? Yes, there's a lot of time missed, lost, whatever the case may be. Obviously, there's going to be things you have to do to fix that situation. However, one of the small comforts, in my opinion, is the fact that that earnest money deposit is non-refundable, so that if need be, I get refunded for my $500 worth of earnest money deposit. And it's possible that that there is actually a little bit of a compensation there for my time, the time of my team, the time, the cost of like the softwares that I used in order to get this transaction to closing in the first place, but then you flaked. So the way that I have accomplished it is literally making sure that my inspection period coincides with the date that my earnest money deposit is due. And then whenever I determine that information, I make sure that my earnest money deposit between myself and my end buyer is at least equal to or greater than the amount of money that I was going to do as part of my offer with my seller. So going back to the original example, buying a property for $10,000 from a seller, I put down that I'm going to do $500 earnest money deposit, or, we agreed we're going to do I'm going to do $500 earnest money deposit. Okay, fine. When I go and turn around and reassign my contractual rights to the property to the gentleman who's paying $15,000, his non-refundable earnest money deposit is going to be for at least $1,000. Let's say, for example, $1,000. So now there's 500, and now there's an extra 500 on this end of the transaction. If my buyer, for whatever reason, flakes out, my seller is taken care of. He gets his $500 that I promised him that I owed to him, that he is owed. But there's also the $500 that I will receive as essentially compensation for the fact that my buyer did not perform according to the contract and didn't take it to closing. That's one thing. The other thing is to keep my costs drastically low. Drastically low. Like I said, there's a bunch of softwares out there that you can use for lead generation. You can pay for all kinds of stuff to pull lists for you. You can pay for literally all kinds of stuff. What I did was keep my expenses as low as possible. I literally use my phone, like my personal cell phone. I use my cell phone to call people and text people. If you don't want people to have your phone number, you can use something very simple like Google Voice. A Google Voice number is free. You can text, you can call. Using that, there's no cost. You can do the actual searching for owner name and owner address information off of the county websites. You can turn around and use, like I said, cyber background checks, or it's cyberbackgroundchecks.com or truepeoplesearch.com. Those are two very common free, essentially skip tracing softwares or websites that you can use to find people's phone numbers. And once you get a hold of them, I'm using the phone that I already paid for every month in order to call the property owner. Once I've communicated with them and we all come to agreement, I say, okay, I'm going to buy your lot for $10,000 with 500 down. We'll close in 30 days or so. I kept my costs very low, but I also had to be realistic. Like it is a necessity for me. It's a valid investment. I do pay for Adobe Acrobat, which is $20 a month for me to use on my computer. So all of my contracts and everything that I have them as PDFs inside of Adobe Acrobat. That $20 a month lets me type in all of the information that looks really, really nice. And I can email it directly to the seller, and the seller can sign electronically. That's been invaluable for me. Well worth the $20. And Lord knows I waste all kinds of money on all kinds of stupid stuff all month long. The $20 is worth it for me. Not only that, but it also keeps you very professional. And the electronic signatures that are provided through like that process are legit. They're like they're accepted as legal proof of signature. So I've never had an issue with that. I Googled. I mean, I personally had experience with local title companies to help me actually handle the transactions from start to finish because the title company is always going to take care of all of that stuff as far as the paperwork goes to make sure that it's recorded properly, making sure that everything is legit with the transaction. It has to go through title company. The title company, I was familiar with them because of when I had purchased my last house. But you can Google title companies. You start calling them and start asking them, hey, this is what, my name is this. I'm trying to wholesale a property. How comfortable are you with helping wholesalers? Do you do virtual transactions if you don't live close by? Like, what are your guys' process? You can do that for free. You literally Google it just like you would anything else. Um, Side note, the earnest money deposit is always sent to the title company. The title company is the neutral third party. So they're the ones who are going to hold that money. It's not like you do earnest money deposit and I send that $500 to this guy via, Venmo or like Cash App. Absolutely not. Whenever your earnest money deposit is due, you provide it directly to the title company. The title company holds on to it until the transaction is finished. And then once the closing happens, they're the ones who cut checks. They're the ones who cut the check to the seller. They'll send you your assignment fee, and then they'll send the bill. They'll collect funds from the buyer. So just to point that out, because I missed that earlier. But you can find a title company for free. You can get referrals to title companies from people in your area who may know. You can market for the properties for free. You can literally, like, I think it was the first video that I did. I told you guys that I searched on the public record, found them in my local property appraiser's office. There was a little lot down my block, and if you make a left, the lot's right there. I discovered that owner lives out of state. I called her for free using cyber background checks as the way to find her phone number. Asked her if she was interested to sell, and she said she was. So I found her information for free. I found her phone number for free. I called her kind of for free and got it under contract for free. Didn't cost me anything. Um, Once I know that she's willing to sell, then I make contact with the title company. Title company will handle like pretty much the entire transaction from that point forward. Once you give them the papers that you have signed, they also hold the earnest money deposit for you. But then you can also turn around and market for a buyer for free. So what was crazy was that particular transaction, that vacant lot actually ended up selling. Like, I reassigned my contract between myself and my seller. I reassigned it to the immediate next door neighbor. So that's just at the end of my block. There was a little house on either side. Like, there was one little house here, the vacant lot that I had under contract, and then a following house. The person who ended up buying the lot from me, that ended up buying the contract off of me, was the homeowner on this left hand side of the lot. She was like, absolutely, I'm interested in purchasing this. She just wanted to double the size of her backyard and prevent from a builder or whomever coming through and building a house right up next to her. So I found her information the same way. I was using property appraiser's office. I clicked on the map right next to the lot that I had in a contract. I found her name, her address. I saw she lived there. I used cyber background checks to find her phone number, and I started calling. I left voicemail because nobody answered, and I sent a text message. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call back. And she's like, hey, did you try to call me? My parents received a voicemail from you. I guess it was like a little bit inaccurate because the phone number was actually her mom or dad or somebody. She's like, yeah, my parents told me that like I had a message from someone who was asking whether or not I wanted to purchase a vacant lot. Was that you? And I said, yeah, that's me. I have this lot that's under contract. I'm looking to reassign it. If you're interested in purchasing it, like I think we could do that, and then you can add it onto your home, your property. And she was like, yep, I would love to do that. So found the property for free, found the owner's information for free, found her phone number for free, called her at the cost of my regular cell phone plan, found the next door neighbor's information for free. I ended up finding the phone number for her for free, called her off my cell phone plan, and gave all that stuff to the title company, and they handled the closing. That transaction earned me $3,800 for free. I paid the $20 for Adobe. And to be honest, at this point, I think that's all I had paid for. It was like $20 for the month for Adobe. So if I do 5 contracts a month, it's literally $5 per contract just to send them emails and have them go out to people and be super professional and super clean and super legit and super compliant. So yeah, not too bad. Ever since then, it's really just been rinse and repeat. Every situation is a little bit different. Every property might be a little bit different. Every seller has a different situation. Every buyer you reach out to has a different situation, but it's all so doable that it's literally like audacious. More people need to know about this. More people need to learn about it. Even if you don't like it, even if you don't want to do it forever, the opportunities here are literally everywhere. And I think you'd be doing a disservice to yourself not to at least explore the option. So, some of my favorite resources would be Flip with Rick YouTube channel, Flipman YouTube channel. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there. I have a community of my own that I'm building as well. A Facebook group, a free Facebook group community as well. I want to be producing this type of content and putting this type of stuff out for you guys so that you can see that if I did it, this is how I did it. What else? That book, Wealth Without Cash by Pace Morby, was really helpful. The book, The Go-Giver, highly recommend. Pair that together with The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. It's going to change everything for you and how you perceive your life, quite literally. So those are my favorite resources as of right now. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions or specific requests for what type of video. I'd be happy to do a video responding to your question. So yeah, feel free to drop it below. I'll leave also the names that I just listed. I'll put those in the description below so that you can have them for future reference. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Leave me a dislike if you want. Leave me a like if you want. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will be putting out videos as best as I can, as often as I can. And hopefully you guys find this to be helpful and valuable. And at the very least, I hope that it begins to prove for you the proof of concept. It can be done. And it's not done by people who are rich. It's not done by only people who have a fat bank account. It's not done by people who are super smart and polished and like all put together and all this type of stuff. Like, it's literally just normal everyday people. And one of the crazy things that I always think of is there are people who are less, like, they're literally people who are less intelligent than you are in this world, making money, and you're not. Like, there's people out there who are less intelligent than you are, and just because of the fact that they've put themselves out there and decided to do something different, they're they're literally achieving personal, professional, financial success. And meanwhile, you're not. And I find that to be a huge shame, because every single one of us has so many skills and so many attributes. You know, it doesn't have to be this. Like I said, you don't have to want to do this. You don't have to continue doing this. You don't have to do it forever. You don't have to do it at all. But just to know that the option is out there, the possibilities are out there, is massive. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to come back super soon and answer some of your questions. And I will link to all of that stuff in the description below. So yeah, I hope you have an awesome freaking day. Let's get to work.